Well, welcome to the Lies of Mansfield. This is a teaching series where we're talking about the lies that are present in our community. It's the case that every single one of us believe lies. Lies about ourselves, lies about the world, lies about what other people think about us. Lies are just kind of a part of the fabric of our lives. The reality is, if these lies continue in our lives unchecked, unknown, they do incredible harm and damage. And this teaching series is about really trying to help you think through what the lies are that you're believing in your life. The lie I want to talk about today is the lie of prosperity. It's the lie that says stuff can fulfill me. Houses and cars and clothes and things can fill me up and make me happy. You know, it happens over Christmas. I'm sure you've seen this in your family, or that thing your kid's been wanting, or that thing that your teenager was asking for. They finally get it. And within just hours of them getting it, they've put it down and moved on to something else. There is this kind of pull to think that the stuff that's a part of our world can fulfill us, can make us happy. Part of this reason I think this happens is because there is a longing for fulfillment all of us have in our hearts. You know, C.S. Lewis, famed Christian writer and apologist, he talked about everyone having a God-shaped hole in their hearts, and that we fill it with all kind of stuff. But the only thing that really is going to satisfy us is the one who made us. Mansfield is a community where I think there's a lot of things that we can see that we might think fill us up or might think make us happy, but end up leaving us unfulfilled. I'm really thankful for the kind of community we live in, where there's restaurants and sports options and fine arts things, and our schools are really well done. There's just so much in our community to be thankful for. But it's really, really easy in the midst of all of these things to buy into kind of a collective lie. A lie that we even tell to each other, that these things are going to make us happy. Here's what I think is at the root of a lot of this. I think at the root of a lot of this prosperity and the idea that prosperity is going to fulfill me and stuff's going to fulfill me, it's the lie of what I call the lie of the next. Well, the next house, the next car, the next thing. I remember a moment in my life when I thought if I could just make it to 5th grade, I would be the most happy person in the world. That if I could just get out of 4th grade, the school system I was a part of at the time, you move to a new building. If I get to that new building, man, then things would be great. But so often what happens in our lives when we buy into the lie of prosperity is that prosperity is a mirage. You know that metaphor? It's like a mirage, something you think you see in the desert, but when you get to it, it vanishes. It wasn't really there. So often what happens when we give ourselves to the lie of the next is we're running after things that are mirages that never really are there. They look real. They look like they're going to make us happy, but we get to them and they don't fulfill us. You know, one of the things that happens as a result of this, I think in a lot of people's lives, is a contemporary trend called FOMO. How many of you guys know what FOMO is? It's this fear of missing out idea, right? That I'm constantly afraid that I'm going to miss out. I have a friend who just confesses to me, he's like, I really struggle with FOMO. I really struggle with being afraid that somebody else is doing something or something else is happening that I'm missing out on. And you can kind of live with a low level, even anxiety that the lie of prosperity brings into your life that leads you to kind of feel like, man, I'm really missing out on more that there is to life, and I'm missing out on what is really there. The bottom line, though, is what happens to us. And this is really what I really want you to see. When we buy into the lie of prosperity, what happens is we begin to lean into idolatry. What happens in your life and mine when we buy into the lie of prosperity is we lean into and become slaves to idols. Now, an idol is anything you worship that's not God. It's anything that you elevate over the one who made you. Anything that you can't live without in your life is an idol. One of the ways I have seen idols show up in my life through the years is when I'm laying at night on my bed trying to go to sleep, and maybe I'm anxious about something. One of the ways idolatry has kind of shown up in my life is that it's the thing, my idol is the thing that kind of gives me peace at night. It's the thing I kind of run to tell me that everything is going to be all right. That's how you really know what you're worshiping. What is that thing you kind of run to that really tells you deep inside, man, I'm going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. For some of us, that might be like our family. Man, if I lose everything, but if I have my family, if I have my parents or I have my wife or I have my kids, I'm going to be all right. Others of us, it might be our job. If I can just keep my job and what I have there, I'm going to be all right. The Bible talks about idolatry a lot. One place, the psalmist talks about idolatry when he says these words: "Their idols are silver and gold made by human hands. They have mouths but cannot speak, eyes but cannot see. They have ears but cannot hear, noses but cannot smell. They have hands but cannot feel, feet but cannot walk. They cannot make a sound with their throats. Those who make them are just like them, as are all who trust in them." Now, in the ancient world, it was very obvious to see idols. They were statues or images that people made out of silver or gold or wood that they bowed down to. And while typically a lot of people today in America, especially in Mansfield, don't have those kind of statues they bow down to in their homes, we do have things we're bowing down to. You ever met somebody that was obsessed with their car, or obsessed with their collection of hunting trophies, or obsessed with their clothes, and you just saw that there was this kind of low-level bowing down in their life to those things? Part of what's so difficult about the lie of prosperity is so often the things that we worship, the idolatry we give ourselves over to, are not bad things. They're actually good things. Your family, your career, hobbies like hunting, those things are actually really good things that God wants you to enjoy. The problem is these lies, this lie of prosperity, blinds me into thinking that these good things are greater than God. See, here's the truth. You have a longing in your life that, if left unchecked, will leave you not only feeling unfulfilled, but this kind of idolatry actually puts you on a collision course with God. This kind of idolatry that all of us deal with, because it's our kind of starting position, that God-shaped hole that we're born with. All of us have it. Because we fill it with these things, we may not think it's very serious, but the reality is it actually is serious, because we're giving things worship that should be given to God alone. There was a moment in Jesus' ministry in John chapter 4 where he addressed this with a person. She's become known as the woman at the well, or the Samaritan woman at the well. Jesus was in Samaria, which in that day and age for a Jewish man to be there was really a kind of a scandalous thing. It was a place where Jewish people did not go. The Samaritans were their enemies, and there was this hostility ethnically between these two groups. But Jesus is not just a man. He's God and human. He's fully God and fully human. And he is entering Samaria in part to show that his plans and purposes to save and to rescue people extend beyond just the Jewish nation, but to Gentiles like the Samaritans. He sits at this well and he finds this woman coming. And she's coming to get water, as people normally would. And Jesus does something shocking. He asks her for a drink. She's shocked by the question, because not only is he a Jew, he's a Jewish male, and he's interacting with this Samaritan woman. This is kind of a weird exchange culturally to see happen. But Jesus is trying to draw her out, especially with this metaphor, this theme of water, to talk about satisfaction and where she finds satisfaction. At one particular point in the exchange, listen to what Jesus says to her. Jesus says, "Everyone who drinks from this water," speaking of the water of the well, "will get thirsty again. But whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never get thirsty again. In fact, the water I will give him will become a well of water springing up in him for eternal life. Jesus compares and contrasts the water this woman is drinking at the well and saying, actually, I have something better for you. I have something, Jesus says, that will satisfy you, not just for one moment or just for one day, but for eternity. Now, if somebody offered you that kind of satisfaction, that kind of fulfillment, you'd probably ask a follow-up question too, and that's what the woman does. He says, "Sir," the woman said to him, this is a Samaritan woman talking, "give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and come here to draw water." So she's like, okay, game on. Show me. Give me what you got. I want to see it. I would love to drink this water and never have to thirst again. Jesus, throughout his ministry, does this a lot. He doesn't answer the question. He answers the real issue behind the question. And he says to this woman, verse 16, "Go call your husband," he told her, "and come back here." See, this woman had been living a life of serial, shallow relationships with men. And when she's talking about fulfillment and satisfaction, and Jesus is talking about the kind of life he gives her, he puts his finger on the issue that really she's running after. The lie that she was believing that she thought would really give her hope and peace and life. He shows her like, this thing that you're giving yourself to, it's not going to satisfy you. It's not going to give you life. They go back and forth. They talk some more. He points out that she's had one relationship after another, and it's never satisfied her. And after a series of conversation, Jesus begins to talk about a rescue that she needs, a deliverance that she needs. And it comes to a head in verse 25 when the woman is talking about this person. She says, the woman said, "I know that the Messiah," that's the Savior, this rescuer, "is coming. And when he comes, he'll explain everything to us." Listen to what Jesus says. Jesus told her, "I, the one speaking to you, am he." Jesus doesn't point to some other source of life to satisfy her. He doesn't point to some other set of teachings even that can give her some encouragement or help in her daily life. He points to himself. And so the reason I want the people in our community to know about the emptiness of the lie of prosperity is because Jesus Christ offers something infinitely better. We've got to call it for what it is. The lie of prosperity, the lie that says stuff can fill me up, it leads me to worship idols, to worship stuff rather than God. And the problem with that is what I'm doing is I'm not giving God what he's due, but more than that, I'm actually living in opposition to God. When I live out the lie of prosperity in my life, what I'm really saying is this stuff is greater and bigger and more beautiful and grander than you are, God. The Bible describes this reality with the word sin. Now, some of you may have heard of sin before and associate it just with actions. And sin is not less than actions, but it's more than that. Sin is a power at work inside every human being. Sin is a power that leads you to long for stuff rather than God. It leads you to buy into the lie of the next, no matter how many times you run into that mirage and see that it's empty. It leads you to keep going back to it over and over and over again. Just like that woman at the well who Jesus confronted through those serial relationships. Right now, what you need is for Jesus to confront you in the lie of prosperity. The beautiful, glorious good news is that though we've bought into that lie, Jesus Christ has come to give us life. Real, as he said here, life everlasting that will never run out. The only way you really come to terms with that truth, though, is to accept the seriousness of your problem. You know, I think one of the great challenges we're facing in American culture today, and this is alive and well in Mansfield, is this idea that my idols, this lie of prosperity, Spencer, yeah, maybe that's true in my life, but is it really that big a deal? I mean, I'm a good person after all. I do good things, and yeah, I probably don't give God the worship that he's due, but is that really that big a deal? The problem is God, because he's perfect, has to respond to your and my rebellion with justice. Imagine people coming before a judge that had committed murders, that had committed horrible crimes. And can you imagine how insane it would be for that judge to give criminals a pass? At some point, people would say, hey, that judge is not being just. He's not doing his job if he has criminals who are even confessing to crimes, agreeing with their crimes, and he's not punishing them. Something's wrong with that. Well, the same is true with God. God would cease to be the holy judge of the universe if he didn't respond to our rebellion against him with wrath. The problem is, the real problem, guys, is we really don't see the seriousness of our crimes. What I just want you to understand, that unfulfillment you feel when that mirage of the next doesn't fulfill you is nothing compared to what a life under the wrath of God in hell forever is going to be like. And that's what the Bible teaches is in store for all of us because of our rejection of God. Jesus Christ comes to save you from that, not just to save you from a lack of fulfillment, but to bring you into right relationship with God. So here's what Jesus did for you. Jesus Christ lived a perfect life for you. He lived a life you could not live for yourself. He never sinned once. He never bowed down to an idol. He never gave in to the lie of prosperity. In fact, at one particular moment in Jesus' life, he was offered all the prosperity of the world, and he turned it down because he knew what he had as the Son of God, as both God and human, was better than anything the world had to offer. Jesus lived that perfect life for you and for me. He then went to a cross and he died the death that you should have died. He died in your place, taking the punishment for your idolatry, my idolatry. He took the punishment that we should have been given. He died and then supernaturally rose from the dead. So that now, if you turn from that stuff, that lie of idolatry, that lie of prosperity, and you trust that Jesus really is who he says he is, this new life that he offers this woman at the well is the life he gives to you. The life of prosperity is alive and well in our community. It's one that you and I need to be on guard against and understand its presence in our lives. The only way you can really turn from it is to turn from that to worshiping Christ. All of us are going to worship something. All of us are worshiping and bowing down to something. The only question is, what is it? My prayer is that today, thinking about the lie of prosperity would help you process through a little bit more clearly about what it means to deal with that lie in your life by turning to Jesus Christ. All of us believe lies. Lie of prosperity is one of them. Lies unchecked, unresolved, will bring harm in your life. Jesus can deliver you from that. If you want to know more about that, you can check out resources on this page, this website, liesofmansfield.com. It's information about how to become a Christian, other lies you deal with, other kind of connections to this lie that are kind of outflowing of that. I pray that it's helpful and encouraging to you. Thanks for watching.